first step in our backyard remodel was to extend our back porch and cover the concrete with wood. It wasn't in the budget to have the original structure removed, so we had to get creative. My dad was in town when we started and helped us figure out a way to build around the original structure by adding ledger boards that we could then hang pressure-treated joists from. Where the original concrete deck was, we added shimmed strips of pressure-treated wood, raising them slightly to leave room for water to travel. It's been a year since we finished the deck and everything is holding up well, but I can't advise anyone to do what we did. It was a confusing jigsaw puzzle that probably ended up being more work than it would have been to demo the concrete and start from scratch. Once the structure was framed out, we could get to the fun part, laying down some deck boards. We used the camo system of deck fasteners. I highly recommend giving it a try. It's a pretty foolproof, easy install and leaves a smaller gap between boards than some of the other systems we experimented with. The tool sits on the top of the board and automatically spaces out the gap between boards evenly. All you have to do is drive screws in the holes on either side. It makes for a nice clean finish when you're done without a bunch of visible screw heads. Camo sells a lever that helps press boards together in areas where they might be warped. It worked well in some spots, but we ran into issues with it gumming up against the flashing tape on our joists, and ended up relying more on wood clamps to cinch the boards tight. We used 2x6 redwood as our decking, nothing fancy, just construction grade wood. It took many hours over the course of several weeks digging through piles of lumber at our local big box store to find boards that looked good enough to use as decking. But in the end, we saved a ton, and it turned out better than expected. We actually built the stairs before we started decking for practical reasons. I followed a formula I found online to determine the layout for the risers. It took a bit of trial and error, but once you have it figured out, you can use the first piece as a template for the others. After the first couple of nights of using the stairs and nearly tripping, it became obvious we needed lighting, so we found some deck lights from Amazon and added an outlet that we hid underneath the deck. These lights were really easy to install. I just drilled 2 openings in the face of each riser. The first riser sat flat against the ledger board, so I had to route a small groove for the cable to fit into, but the other ones were all hollow, so it was a really straightforward install. I'm really happy with how these lights turned out. It's been so helpful on a practical level, but also steps up the look of the deck. To the front of the deck, we added pieces of redwood that will act as supports for the front facing. We found these thin pieces of redwood at Home Depot that were the perfect size and shape to cover the face of the deck. I just sanded them down to smooth out some of the roughness and used a scrap of wood as a spacer block between rows. I should also note it's a good idea to paint the support blocks and rim joists black so that the skeleton of the structure isn't noticeable behind the gaps of the fascia. also made a little access door in case we need to access the space underneath the deck in the future. We used a deck stain by Defy. I'm really happy with this product and would recommend it highly to anyone looking for a robust stain and sealer. It was a very easy to apply stain and has held up really well in what has been a very intense year of weather here in LA. One day we might make a video on how to use this paint sprayer, but I can't say enough about how much of a time save this thing is. If you have a few larger paint jobs coming up, buy one of these. It will pay for itself in time saved. Once everything was masked off, we just sprayed on 2 coats and let it dry. Since our structure was such a complicated mess of patched together pieces, we had to go with these post bases to support the deck posts, but I can't say I recommend them. If we had the clearance and the foresight, we should have gone further down with our posts so that they were more solidly anchored. We did add blocking underneath each base and lag bolted them in place, but it is definitely not the most rigid system. For the rails, I added a slight bevel on the top to help shed water better. I just set my table saw to a very slight angle and ran the boards through on either side. I used a Forstner bit to recess the screw heads so I could fill them in later and attached the rail to the post with a couple of deck screws. Mostly just as an excuse to make use of my highly underutilized domino tool, I added dominoes to the end of the rail to help me align the next piece when assembling. It's basically an overpriced but very easy way of creating a loose mortise and tenon joint. The domino tool routes out the mortises, and then you glue in a loose tenon that will fit into a matching mortise on the other rail. Pretty foolproof. For the corner post, I repeated the same process but cut the ends at a 45-degree angle. Then I sanded and filled all the screw holes before staining. If I were smarter, I would have built the railing system before spraying on the stain, but no one ever accused me of being smart. Next up, we're going to install the cable system, so if you want to check that video out and see how the deck turned out, please subscribe to our channel so you can stay updated and keep up with our crazy shenanigans. Thanks for watching.